The women who join today's military aren't told no when they apply to fly fighter jets or attack helicopters just because of their gender. They aren't told no when they want to apply to Ranger School or infantry officer basic training. But they all know that there's much, much more work to be done to ensure that women's leadership is recognized, and we have more diverse leaders. We reach the top echelons of command for all who are qualified, including all women, and that all women feel safe and respected in our military, period. You know, some of it's relatively straightforward work, where we're making good progress designing body armor that fits women properly, tailoring combat uniforms for women, creating maternity flight suits, updating requirements for their hairstyles. And some of it is going to take an intensity of purpose and mission to really change the culture and habits that cause women to leave the military. That women are making sure more diverse candidates are being considered for career advancing opportunities at every single level. That women aren't penalized in their careers for having children. That women aren't just token members, but integral parts throughout all branches and all divisions. And that they can completely, fairly engage in promotion, compete all across the board, including on age and gender neutrality and physical fitness tests. You know that both members of the military couples can thrive while serving, like Lieutenant General Richardson and her husband, Lieutenant General Richardson, who I might add, I want to thank him for getting me off a mountain that was about 12 to 14,000 feet up on a goat path when our helicopter went down in a snowstorm. It's good to see you, General. The ride down that mountain was more perilous in the truck than it was in the helicopter, but thank you. And we have to take on sexual assault and harassment and violence against women in the military. Sexual assault is abhorrent and wrong at any time. And in our military, so much of unit cohesion is built on trusting your fellow service members to have your back. There's nothing less than a threat to our national security. I know Secretary Austin takes this as seriously as Vice President Harris and I do. That's why this first memo as Secretary was a directive to take on sexual assault in the military, and why he stepped up independent review. He set up an independent review commission on sexual assault to make concrete recommendations for changes. This is going to be an all-hands-on-deck effort under my administration to end the scourge of sexual assault in the military. And we're going to be focused on that from the very top. I know that we can do it. The U.S. military has defeated American enemies on land and air and at sea. And this is not beyond us. I want to thank General Van Ovost and Lieutenant General Richardson for their exemplary careers in service to our country. You're America's patriotism at its finest, undaunted and absolutely able to do anything by any obstacle, determined to open wide the doors of opportunity, and ready for the next challenge. It's my great honor to serve as your Commander-in-Chief, and I look forward to hearing your active duty and recommendations of how we can work together to keep the American people safe, meet every challenge in the 21st century. So I want to thank you both, and I want to thank the former general. I keep calling him general, but the guy who runs that outfit over there. I want to make sure we thank the Secretary for all he's done to try to implement what we've just talked about, and for recommending these two women for promotion. Thank you all. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You've been listening to President Biden marking International Women's Day along with Kamala Harris, the first female vice president in this nation's history. President Biden announced the nominations of 2 female general officers to become 4-star combatant commanders. And if confirmed, they will be the second and third women in U.S. history to lead a combatant command. Let's bring in CNN's Caitlin Collins. So, Caitlin, today kicks off a major week for President Biden.
It certainly does, Pam. And we should note that what President Biden did not mention there is this is what the New York Times reported. Those are those 2 female generals whose promotions had actually already been decided upon months ago, but they were held up at the Pentagon because officials there, including former President Trump's defense secretary at the time, were so worried that if they recommended them to the White House in that normal process, that somehow they would be thwarted by former President Trump. And so they held off on actually recommending them to be promoted and nominated for these 4-star commands. And so we should note that as well, something President Biden did not mention in his remarks, but was certainly notable as well. And you're right, this is going to be a big week for the White House. This is President Biden's first speech of the week, but it's not going to be his last because he does have his first primetime address happening on Thursday. President Biden will deliver his first primetime address to the nation Thursday to mark the anniversary of the coronavirus crisis.
This week marks 1 year since the country was essentially shut down.
Biden's Oval Office address will happen exactly 1 year after this one.
The vast majority of Americans, the risk is very, very low.
Biden's first big address comes as he's also set to sign his first major piece of legislation.
As soon as I get it.
House lawmakers are now expected to vote Wednesday on his $1.9 trillion relief package, meaning Biden could sign by the end of the week.
Our focus right now is on getting this bill across the finish line, getting relief out to the American people.
The bill is a dramatic expansion of pandemic aid and federal safety net programs and underwent several changes before being passed by the Senate. Now jobless benefits will remain at $300 instead of $400 and go through September, while stimulus checks will be limited to those making under $80,000. Stimulus checks should start going out this month, but the White House won't say if Biden's name will appear on them, something Trump insisted on when he was in office.
This is a very popular question. In terms of what the checks will look like, I just don't have an update on that for you today.
Not a single Republican voted for the stimulus bill, with many complaining it was too bloated.
This was not really about coronavirus in terms of the spending. This was a liberal wish list of liberal spending.
Every public opinion poll shows that people want this. They believe it's needed.
Meanwhile, Biden is also facing a growing crisis on the southern U.S. border amid a surge in migrant crossings.
As you all know, we inherited a broken system.
A delegation of senior officials traveled to the border this weekend for briefings and to see the first facility for children that opened since Biden took office.
They went there because the president asked them to go because he wanted to hear and understand tangibly what's happening on the ground.
Now, Pam, 2 other things we should note that happened here at the White House today. One, President Biden signed an executive order forming the Gender Policy Council. That's going to be basically taking efforts to make sure that gender equality is included in priorities of the administration, both foreign and domestic. That's going to be a body that reports directly to President Biden. And he also has instructed the education secretary to reassess some of those Trump-era policies that had to do with sexual assault on school campuses, some that critics said really afforded too much protection to those students accused of sexual assault and not the ones who said they were victims of sexual assault. So you're seeing all of this come together on International Women's Day. And of course, the White House said that timing was not coincidental.
All right, Caitlin, thanks for bringing us the latest there from the White House. And I want to bring in my panel now, Dana Bash, Jackie Alamany. Thanks, ladies, for coming on. Dana, let's start with you. Let's talk about this relief bill. It is a huge accomplishment for the Biden administration, should it pass. And it's not just for the checks going to all Americans. It will give money to reopen schools, struggling small businesses, child tax credits, health insurance subsidies. How significant is it?
It's incredibly significant for all of the reasons that you just listed and much, much more. First and foremost, to get people help who need it. Secondly, just more broadly, to attack the still very big issue with funding to continue the vaccine rollout, testing, and schools and other things related to the coronavirus, but also the economy. But then it's also just beyond the content of this bill. Pamela, you know, it's also about the setting of the agenda and putting a marker down for this president. It is his first big piece of legislation. He made, along with his top aides, a very strategic decision to choose to do this, despite the fact that he did promise bipartisanship, saying, pretty publicly, at least his aides have, he didn't think Republicans were going to come along in a way that was big enough to do what it needed to do. He was right, because we haven't seen any Republican votes. And so we're going to see it likely to pass in the House. Big time Democratic unity, largely because of the content of this and because it is intended to give a win to their new president. We'll see what happens with other pieces of legislation down the road.
That is a big question, too. How much will that hold, that unity within the party hold? Biden, of course, has his first primetime address on Thursday and will likely be touting this major accomplishment of having this bill passed. Jackie, what tone do you expect him to take?
Yeah, we heard from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and administration officials that this primetime address that's going to be touting the, one of the biggest legislative packages in history with a single year impact is also going to focus on a lot of the sacrifices with, focusing on individual American stories that people have made over the course of this year and this pandemic that has killed nearly 600,000 Americans. But look, Biden's ability to communicate this bill is really integral to Democrats' 2022 electoral success and his ability to set the stage for his ambitious legislative agenda going forward, that infrastructure package that you and Dana mentioned. So that's why we're already seeing this White House in cell mode ahead of this Thursday address. Administration officials and Democrats from one stretch of Pennsylvania Avenue to the other are already working very hard to communicate to Americans the tangible benefits that are going to make the lives of Americans better. So yes, we're going to see President Biden on Thursday night speaking directly from the bully pulpit to Americans. But on a week like International Women's Day, where we're celebrating and highlighting women's accomplishments, there is also no better spokesperson, perhaps, than someone like Vice President Kamala Harris, who's also touting the benefits of this bill and how it can directly impact women's lives. Of course, it's not just incumbent on women to speak to these issues like the child tax credit that you both mentioned. But again, she is a uniquely important messenger for the White House. And that's why you've seen her out there speaking to the EU Parliament today, hitting up various stops at women's small businesses in Virginia last week. And I think we're going to continue to see that leading up to this Thursday address.
All right, Jackie, Dana, thanks so much. And in the meantime, more women come forward with sexual harassment claims against New York Governor Cuomo. And now a key political ally says it's time for him to go.
Think about everything you've ever learned about getting healthy. There's a lot of information out there and it can be confusing. Eat carbs, don't eat carbs, less fat, more fat. Noom has a different philosophy though. It's not about what you eat, it's about how you eat. Noom teaches you about eating, why you eat how you eat, and helps you build new habits so you can get smart about the choices you make around food. Once you make that turn, you'll be eating better, feeling better, and understanding your cravings. Everyone is busy, which is why Noom doesn't ask for too much of your time. Only 10 minutes a day. There's no rigorous plan or strict diet to adhere to. Over 80% of Noomers complete the program, and over 60% stick with their goals for at least 1 year. It's that effective. Learn how to eat the right way and build a lifetime of healthy habits with Noom. Sign up for your trial today at Noom, NOOM.com/CNN News. Again, that's Noom at NOOM.com/CNN News.
Breaking news in our politics lead. The New York State Attorney General has picked the leads on the investigation into sexual harassment claims against Governor Andrew Cuomo. This as two more former Cuomo aides have come forward alleging inappropriate conduct, bringing the total to 5 women. And now a growing list of New York State Democratic lawmakers, including the state Senate Majority Leader, are calling for Governor Cuomo to resign. But as CNN's Bryn Gingras reports, the governor says he's not going anywhere.
It was a painful year.
At a COVID-19